Ash Ketchum's Tauros is one of those random Pokemon you forget that he has until he gets stampeded by them over and over again. Now the thing is that most non-Japanese fans wouldn't even know how he captured them, as their capture episode was actually never aired outside of Japan. It holds this esteemed honor with only a few other episodes, and if this video gets 250 likes, I'll be sure to cover those other episodes too. Let's find out how Ash captured Tauros and how it grew to be a mon that actually had pretty decent battle outings. So Ash's Tauros capture episode is called The Legend of Dratini, and it's the 35th episode of the original series. This episode originally aired on November 25th, 1997, and once again it never actually got dubbed in the West for, well, let's just say explosive reasons. This episode takes place in the Safari Zone, and if you don't know what the Safari Zone is, well, you probably never played Pokemon before, but it's basically an area where lots of Pokemon run wild, and you can enter and catch as many Pokemon as you want, under the time limit or the 30 Pokemon limit that you're allotted, whichever comes first. After entering into the Safari Zone, the warden in there, whose name is Kaiser, gives him a basket of Safari Balls and a fishing rod. Ash is really happy to use them, but actually, Kaiser is not as happy, as he kind of warns him that if he breaks any of these rules or uses anything that's not a fishing rod or the Safari Balls, well, there's gonna be some deadly consequences. Behind Kaiser, there's a picture of a young man in a Dratini, and it's pretty obvious that it's Kaiser, but you already know that there's some kind of mystery surrounding it. After finally entering inside the Safari Zone, a herd of Tauros is seen approaching the heroes, and so Ash does what any other trainer would do in this situation and catches one of them. Actually, Brock also threw a Safari Ball and captured one of them too, and there was always this thought that Brock should have owned one too. But I guess since the balls were under Ash's ownership, they automatically got transferred to him. Brock having one would have been super cool though, like he could have continuously had it on his team and worked on his breeding skills as well. Then whenever Ash recalled his Tauros, it would have made for some fun reunions. And heck, Tauros would have definitely performed better than Onix in the Great Pokemon race. It's actually kind of funny because after Ash catches a Tauros, he exclaims how easy it was to catch Pokemon, which actually kind of foreshadows Go in the later seasons of the anime. If you know, you know. Then while hiding in the bushes, the gang stumbles upon a Rhyhorn, which would have made for another excellent Pokemon for Ash, or even again for Brock to capture. However, when he throws a Safari Ball, the herd of Tauros get in the way and even more Tauros are captured. Then after going back to the Warden, we see that he's in a bit of a pickle with Team Rocket, and we get even more reasons why this episode had to have been banned outside of Japan. Another fun fact about this episode is that this was actually the first appearance of Misty's special lure. They used it to try fishing, and because it wasn't aired in the West, it wouldn't make its debut in the main series until episode 91, which was almost 60 episodes later. It wasn't even in Kanto anymore, they were all the way in the Orange Islands. That's how much later that was. Looking at the other lures that Misty has, it's actually pretty interesting as they're all Pokemon she owned at this time, or in Seal's case in Cerulean Gym. Oh, and there's Charmander, but Ash owns it, so we count it. After some more Team Rocket shenanigans, this time even involving some dynamite, Ash and friends help resolve the issue and reunite Kaiser with his old friend Dratini, who is now evolved into a Dragonair. This touching reunion was really nice, and I just noticed his name is actually a play on the Dratini line, as Dragonite's Japanese name is Kairyu. Well, we see Ash catch 3 Pokemon on screen, and as the episode ends, he talks to Oak, who asks him what Pokemon he caught. He's in the Safari Zone after all, so I'm sure he must have caught a plethora of different Pokemon. Ash tells Oak that he caught a little bit of everything, and when the transfer is complete, 30 Tauros stampede Professor Oak. So yeah, one can assume that at every corner Ash tried to catch something, a Tauros popped up and interfered with the capture, which actually became a funny recurring gag. You see, this herd of Tauros are homies, and they're always traveling together no matter what. They were together in the Safari Zone, and now they're gonna chill at Oak's lab. The first mention of Ash's Tauros in the dub is in episode 65 when Ash returns to Oak's lab, and Oak mentions that most of his Pokeballs are just Tauros that Ash caught in the Safari Zone.
That's a lot of Pokeballs.
Yes, but they're almost all Tauros from the Safari Zone.
Pikachu.
Finally, it's time for Tauros to make his battling debut, and this happens in episode 111, Hello Pumelo, when Ash is having his battle against the Orange League champion, Drake. No, not this Drake, but this one. No, not this Drake either, but this one. Ash wanted to use a similar strategy of beginner's luck to help him in the Indigo Plateau with Kingler and Muck, so he used one of his Tauros. He comes out versus Drake's Gengar and fires off a fissure, but it doesn't work as Gengar just levitates out of the way. But remember, at this point, abilities weren't a thing before you start typing that away. He gets hit with a Confuse Ray, and Ash is forced to recall it. Later in the battle, it gets sent out against Venusaur, and again Fissure doesn't work, but this time due to the sandy field. It doesn't matter as it does its best, and eventually defeats Venusaur with a takedown attack. And finally, it goes up against Drake's ace, the powerful Dragonite, and after a valiant effort, it is defeated. But hey, it went up against half of Drake's team, and after Ash's victory, it's forever memorialized in the Palace of Victory along with Ash's other Pokemon. Its next big appearance was in Johto, when Ash entered the Pokemon Swap Meet with it. There was a big Spain-inspired Tauros event, but instead of running away from it, it was a huge Tauros-only tournament. Ash's Tauros was victorious and everyone wanted to trade for it. One of the trade offers that Ash got was actually for a Rhyhorn, which was really nice touch since, well, that was one of the Pokemon that Ash originally wanted to capture before Tauros ran in the way.
Ash, how about trading it to me for this great Onix? This Nidoqueen's super awesome. Ash, I'll trade you my Rhyhorn.
Wait a second, guys. Thanks a lot, but there's no way I'm trading my Tauros for any Pokemon.
In the end, of course, Ash decided to not trade away his beloved Tauros and went on his way. Later on in the Johto saga, it would appear again in another battle, this time in his top 16 match against Gary in the Silver Conference, where it went against his iconic Nidoqueen. Sadly this time for Tauros, since it had no beginner's luck, it was extremely outmatched and stood no chance, easily getting taken down by a close range Hyper Beam attack and being eliminated first in the battle. Tauros would make a few appearances in Pokemon Chronicles, which usually just meant they were running around and causing havoc at Professor Oak's lab, but it was always fun to see it just horsing, or I guess just bullying around. Its final major appearance was in the Battle Frontier Saga, where he wanted to use it against Annabelle. In their first match, Ash tried to use Bronze over Brain, but quickly found out why that wasn't going to work as her Alakazam made quick work of poor Tauros, knocking it out with a combination of both Focus Punch and Psybeam. In the rematch, it fared a bit better as it went up against Annabelle's Metagross. In this battle against a pseudo-legendary, Tauros stood its ground and went toe-to-toe, or I guess claw in this case, and ended the battle in a double knockout against a pseudo-legendary. With Pikachu's track record against Metagross though, Ash should have definitely used that and saved Tauros for later. And after that, Ash's Tauros would make many sporadic appearances, but never battle again. It was basically a staple that whenever Ash went back to Pallet Town, his herd of Tauros would be there to greet him in open arms and stampede him. They literally couldn't contain their excitement for Ashy Boy, and it was actually pretty wholesome overall. It does beg the question though, is the Tauros that Ash uses in battle the same one over and over again, or does he kind of rotate them? A popular theory and one that I'm really on board with is that he just uses the leader of the herd, and that's the one that does the battles. Tauros wasn't one of his stronger Pokemon, but it was always resilient and always showed up when it had to. Even if it wasn't winning or securing a defeat on screen, it was always doing its best and trying, given how little battle experience it actually had. Another random inconsistency is that even though Ash caught them in a Safari Ball, and when he went back to Oak's lab we saw that Oak had them in Safari Balls, every time Ash would use them in a battle he would always use regular Pokeballs. I mean, it's probably because it was just too annoying to actually have them animate the Safari Balls, but I do think it would have been much more interesting to see if he actually kept them that way. And after capturing his Tauros? I don't know. The encounter actually went up in the games, which is probably influenced from the anime, which was a nice reference to Ash's and the impact, albeit small, that it had since other people probably wanted to emulate Ash's team. Not many people got to see Ash's Tauros being captured before, and the little growth that it had on screen. Overall, to me, it's a really memorable Ashmon due to the fact that they seem to absolutely adore him, despite not having many interactions with him, unless you count stampeding him. I also absolutely adore the recurring gag of them stampeding him whenever he comes home. Have you ever seen its capture episode before? Don't forget to like this video if you want to see me cover more banned Pokemon episodes, and don't forget to not let the Tauros stampede you on the way out.